So, hey guys, as you guys all know, I like to go look at old TV shows that I liked as a child and take a look how they treated Asian people. And so, why don't we just take a look real quick?
Tonight. So you ever notice when two black guys come in your convenience store and one go one way and one go the other way? What they doing? What they stealing? Who with me?
Oh, I take him back right after you suck on these little Chinese nuts.
Now, let's ask Hideki.
Yeah, he's Oriental. I mean, Asian. They're so smart they destroy the grading curve.
They are still coming through. This is impossible!
Wow! Holy smoke! Crash landing!
Beautiful language, isn't it, Bart?
Ooh, boy! That's not good. So, the one thing that I take a look at immediately is that Asian characters in comedies back in the day and even in dramas always seem to be the butt of the joke. Whether it be, hey, we have a bad accent, hey, why is your dick so small? Which, granted, that's a weird stereotype because, mental things, but we're not getting into that. That might be another video. But the one thing that I always noticed is that it's funny that Asians are smart, which is really weird. It's a backhanded humble brag compliment. Oh, hey man, I'm so glad you're good at, being really smart, but it's because you're Asian, am I right? Isn't that funny that you're really good at math, kid? Which is weird. I was really good at physics and stuff, and people would make fun of me. And I wondered why that was. And it wasn't until I got older that I realized it was because of the model minority trope. The term model minority has often been used to refer to a minority group perceived as particularly successful, especially in a manner that contrasts with other minority groups. The term could be, by its definition and logic, be applied to any number of groups defined by any number of criteria, but is perhaps most commonly used to frame discussions of race, in which a particular, the model minority designation, is often applied to Asian Americans, who is a group who are often praised for apparent success across academic, economic, and cultural domain successes, typically offered in contrast to the perceived achievement of other racial groups. If I'm being honest with you, I hate the model minority stereotype with a bleeding passion, and it irritates me to no end. I know at this point some people may be, but why not, Keith? It seems like the concept of the model minority is based on praising Asians for being a successful part of American society. But it isn't. It's actually not a good concept. The model minority is a backhanded compliment to Asian Americans because it makes a stereotype of being shy and timid while not trying to cause conflict with the status quo, while also being used as a way to bring down other minority groups like African and Latin Americans. Since the end of World War II, many white people have used Asian Americans and their perceived collective success as a racial wedge. The effect? Minimizing the role racism plays in persistent struggles of other racial/ethnic minority groups, especially Black Americans. The reason this concept and idea of the model minority success is harming other minorities is because it allows people to say systemic racism doesn't exist. I'll just let Ellen Wu explain here.
Government officials looked at socioeconomic data from African American communities and contrasted it to the so-called family values and stability of Asian Americans. Now, this fueled racist claims that Black people had no one to blame but themselves if they experienced poverty and other social disadvantages. Conservatives went on to use these claims to justify making cuts to many essential social programs for African Americans and other disadvantaged minority groups.
But technically in 2020, according to the National Academy of Science analysis of census data, Asian Americans have a 12.3% poverty rate that's compared to the 9.8% for non-Hispanic whites. I have two personal grudges though with the model minority concept. And the first one is how not a century ago America was whistling a different tune about how they viewed Asian people. If you remember in my Warrior video essay a few months back, I talked about the anti-Asian sentiment that was going around because of the yellow peril. Asian people were marked at that time as being uncivilized, drug-addicted, rapist criminals, thus leading to the Chinese Exclusion Act, which banned immigration from China and other Asian countries. But that was only the start of how America viewed Asian people. We then had another rise of this anti-Asian sentiment during World War II after the bombing of Pearl Harbor by the Imperial Japanese Army. An executive order known as Executive Order 9066 affected the lives of about 117,000 Japanese in America, the majority of whom were American citizens. Anyone who was at least 1/16 Japanese was evacuated, including 17,000 children under the age of 10, as well as several thousand elderly and handicapped. So now, the question is, when did being Asian become positive instead of a negative? Was it because of the fact that America treated Asian people so badly that they wanted to make amends? No, the answer is obviously no in that, because racism still exists systemically towards African American and Latin Americans. And we also have things like Mickey Rooney did this shit still.
You cannot go on or keep ringing my bell. You disturb me. You must have a key made.
That's peak Asian representation in the 60s, my boys. And we also had Long Duck Dong and Data in the 80s.
What's happening, the hot stuff?
They can't wait until tomorrow when they focus on all the whatever you call it.
Gee, aren't they so funny with their accents and how they're quirky? God, man, I really fucking hate this. It was all thanks to the Immigration Act of 1965, which undid harmful immigration laws against Asian people, while also setting a standard to have more educated Asian people come to our country, like doctors and engineers. Do you see where it all came from now? So this is what sparked that, oh look, the Asians are successful, look at them killing it, dude, that kind of stigma, and was then used for things like anti-civil rights propaganda and other not good things. Like I said, my biggest beef with the model minority concept is it being used as a social weapon to call out other minorities, which is not good. It's really bad. Very, very bad. What irritates me the most is it's that America is parading Asian people around like the good noodle kid with all the gold stars, even though they treated them like shit for almost a century beforehand. The second thing I don't like is the whole Asians being good, hardworking, and smart as a positive stereotype, because it's a backhanded compliment. When you see these stereotypes as the butt of your jokes for Asian people in your media, it's no longer looked as a positive thing, but used for laughs, which is annoying as shit. I say this because when I was younger, I brushed it off as just being normal. Like being made fun of for being good at math, or people's dumb comebacks to me was, oh yeah, it's because you're Asian. Which now I realize is really fucked up. My teachers didn't do anything about this when people made fun of me just for being Asian and for being smart because I was Asian. Like I said in my Harold and Kumar video essay, it's just kind of normalized that these Asian stereotypes about ha ha ha, isn't it so funny that they're doing all this stuff, is just normal. And you don't realize at a young age how it really affects you, you know? How hearing people make fun of people having an Asian accent, or making fun of you for having a tiny dick even though, that's not real, really messes you up. How the model minority stereotype created the tiger mom. It really affects you because, you have a mom who's kind of like a tiger mom, and it makes you ashamed of it. And you have family members that have an accent that's being mocked on American television, and you become low-key ashamed of them because you want them just to be normal. And that's really fucked up, and that's something I've had to undo and unthink for years now. And so my question is there a TV show or anything besides Harold and Kumar that kind of brings that middle finger to the concept and idea of the model minority? And it is. It's called Awkwafina is Nora from Queens. Awkwafina is Nora from Queens is a semi-autobiographical retelling of Awkwafina's life as a 20-something-year-old slacker trying to figure out life in Queens, New York. I relate a lot to Awkwafina just as a person because we're both Asian and we were both very into hip-hop culture. And we both really had successful rap careers. one more successful than the other, but we all can't have bangers like this.
Gotta use you, so let's hit war speed like Sulu. Baby, you are so attractive, you shock me just like static. No mage, but I can show you magic. Show you a whole new world like Aladdin. One big trip without any baggage.
Oh my god. Why did I think that was cool? Why did I think I could rap? Come on, not Keith. From high school, you were wrong.
We have had shows like Kim's Convenience and Fresh Off the Boat that poke fun of the model minority trope, but to me, they do it in a way where Caucasian audiences could go, ha ha! Look at those Asian moms being like how I imagine Asian moms being. Aren't they so silly? Side note, I love both of these shows very much, and I do think these shows break boundaries for Asians in North American media. I'm not taking that away from them. Simalu is goals, baby. But how Nora from Queens breaks the model minority trope is, well, I don't know how to put this any nicer, but she's just kind of a big fuck up. She isn't an aspiring med student or an engineer. In the beginning, she's kind of a bum. Even in the first episode, she's doing the bare minimum, which is to be an Uber driver, and she manages to mess that up.
Love each other.
1 star.
Have a good one. Oh, holy shit. Oh my god.
She wants to work hard, but she also realizes that means she actually has to work. So she doesn't have that drive. And when she's motivated, it's either because of online video games or to try to make enough money to get her car out of the impound lot.
I'm under a lot of pressure here, okay? I got a day job as a real estate agent. I got a night job. It's playing Savage Valley. And I got a lot of people depending on me in my universe. All right? I got Dad, Grandma, Terry, Kofi, Nancy. I got all of them, and I'm stressed out.
Also, Nora is very smart, and she's very intuitive. She gets out of situations using her smarts and wit. Like, she's really good at blackjack, and she doesn't know why, as well as she can program an app, but she's only one person. I feel another way Nora in general flips the idea of the model minority is she comes in contact with a lot of other Asian people who would you think be a part of the model minority concept. Those are in episode 3, Savage Valley, and a 4-episode arc at the end of the season centered around her and her cousin Edmund. So in episode 3, Nora is in need of money to get her car out of the impound lot, so she starts working as a secretary or something for this famous Asian real estate agent named Nancy. And in the beginning, Nora feels like she can't keep up with Nancy. Nancy comes off super successful. I mean, she has been doing real estate for almost her entire life. She's showing off to Nora all of her awards. Nancy looks and acts like how you would imagine a model minority being a success story and killing it in life. But something feels really off. As soon as she hires Nora, she starts taking these long lunches, and she doesn't seem to be focusing on her job as much and letting Nora do most of the work. Nora starts feeling like she can't keep up with everything in her life, so she starts taking Adderall. And while she's on this bad drug trip, she starts to emulate Nancy. Looks and appearance-wise, she can be successful, which isn't how that works, but she does manage to impress. But again, it's at the cost of being high on prescription drugs that have been expired for about a decade.
Expired 2007. I should double up.
Which then comes to the inevitable fallout of the drugs wearing off. But by the end of the episode, it shows off that Nancy's model minority image is kind of a lie. So she doesn't actually like her job as a real estate agent. That's why she takes these long breaks and realizes she's wasted her life doing it. Nora takes that to heart in a scene of growth when her dad tries to get her another job and she shuts him down.
Nancy's favorite part of the job was leaving. I want a job where my favorite part is coming. I'm coming at work, to work. And, it has impact. Every hour of every second of my day has impact.
Not because she doesn't want a job, she just wants a job that she's happy with. I like this scene a lot because it's a deconstruction of the model minority concept in front of us. And then there's basically this series-long arc with the relationship between Nora and her cousin Edmund. So in the first episode, Nora is having a conversation with her dad and feeling like she hasn't accomplished anything after having a weird dream about meeting God and dying. So she explains that, and then her dad tries to cheer her up, but at the same time gives this backhanded compliment about how successful her cousin is. Nora deflects this statement by attacking Edmund's unseen deformity.
Tail. Okay, so he's not winning the race of life either.
I told you we don't talk about Edmund's vestigial tail.
It's this long. Disgusting. It's disgusting.
When we first see Edmund, he is the peak model minority. Young, successful, and humble brags a lot about himself. And every time they interact, it's antagonistic until you find out Edmund has been lying about his success not only to his family, but investors for a fake app he's been trying to make.
I was going to come up with an app, but then I didn't. I still haven't, and it's bad.
You realize Edmund isn't the model minority. He wants you to think he is, but he's as flawed as Nora. Even when Nora decides to help him make an actual app, he still has this superiority complex with her. He still thinks he's doing better than her, but the audience sees that he's the one fucking up this app deal more than Nora ever is. He makes all the bad calls, which leads to the failure of the launch of the app. But what really brings home the concept of the model minority is just this bullshit idea made up by Americans about Asian people, is when after the app fiasco happens, a Chinese company buys out the app and Nora gets a job working as the American face of the app because they need that American touch. When she's in China, she's just expected to look.
But your role here is to be the American face of Scrubber. And you're doing a great job.
Her being Asian means nothing. Her coworkers look at her being the lazy American.
真有够恶心，跟你讲。Hey, I can hear you guys, you know. 我听到，I 听到了，我bet.
Her friends she meets at the bar, all in China, because they're these faces for these Chinese companies, all they have to do is just not fuck up. But she fucks up because that's just how the show is. Which is weird because her assistant basically is the exact model minority America views all Asian people being. But because she's working in a Chinese market, she has to be this model minority or she's going to lose her job in this Chinese-run business. The other way I think the show really does for me when it comes to breaking down the model minority idea is the family dynamic of Nora, her dad, and her grandmother. Both her parental figures are subversions of the model minority trope in their own ways. The reason I think this is because Nora is what we would call a third-generation immigrant. Most of these Asian stories, one of the biggest conflicts is the generational gap. The hard work from their bootstraps immigrant parents against the more laid-back Americanized children. Here, her grandma is from China and her dad was raised in America his entire life. So Nora doesn't speak Chinese very well, and when she does, her family looks at her like, bro, we live in America.
奶奶，我答应你，我不会忘记你们。
What are you doing?
Sorry, I just thought we'd have a moment. It's our mother tongue.
The one thing that I do notice is the relationship with Nora and her father. It's not antagonistic at all, and they really are on good terms. Sure, he gets frustrated, but it's never like, why aren't you in med school or anything like that. He just is being a concerned parent. At the same time, he supports Nora's choices, even though he thinks it's going to be a bad idea. Partly because he doesn't want to be the overbearing parent, but also, I think, so she can learn from her mistakes. Like, he doesn't give her money to bail her car out, but expects her to get a job. Like, he helps her get a job, because it's not antagonistic with him. He just wants her to learn a lesson. Also, this is my favorite clip.
What's that for?
That's for not being an insane tiger dad and being constantly content with mediocrity.
Princess, you are so not mediocre.
It speaks a lot about the relationship between Nora and her father, and it's the most healthy-looking Asian parent-Asian child relationship on TV I've seen, and I think we need more of that. Also, another thing that makes him different from the model minority stereotype is he admits he's flawed. He doesn't come off as perfect. He goes to single parents counseling because he's a grieving and he lost his wife. Again, I like this because all we ever see are these parents that are the tiger mom or tiger dad. Are you a doctor yet bullshit? Yes, tiger moms exist, but like they have emotions. Then there's Nora's grandma, who subverts the stereotypical modern minority of the elderly Asian person as quiet and timid. She's actually, a person who isn't just sitting there looking dumbfounded all the time. She has a personality. She's a trickster. She likes to goof around. She's loud and outspoken. But when she's outspoken, it isn't in a critical way. It's just she speaks her mind. Starting to see the pattern here. They're actually people and not snooty know-it-all assholes who think they're better than everyone else. She's just a fun grandma who wants to have good, chill time with her grandchildren. And and watch K-dramas in Atlantic City with her friends. One of my favorite scenes that is funny to me that makes fun of the model minority, which is in order to get to America, she claims to have lied about having a nursing degree, but also that she had a chance to marry a rich, successful Asian doctor, but chose the trash boy she fell in love with when she was in China. A lot of this show is just a family trying to get by, and it's the most relatable thing I've seen. I think this shows like Nora from Queens is important because it allows you to tell relatable stories with an Asian cast. I am a strong believer as an Asian person for media like this, showing an Asian cast is both relatable, real, and flawed, but also trying their best. Nora from Queens is the strongest show out there, in my opinion, but shows like Fresh Off the Boat and Kim's Convenience also do this very well.
I think the model minority stereotype is bad. It's a negative view on Asian people. And during this time, during the COVID pandemic, it gets even worse because of the fact there's a rise in Asian hate crimes, like I said in my Warrior video. So it puts into consideration, does America really think Asian people are a model minority when they're attacking them just for being Asian? And it's all because some asshole who was in office at the time decided to not take this pandemic very seriously and call it the Chinese flu when it got really bad. And again, I don't think people can tell the difference between Asian people because of the fact we cast Korean people to play Chinese and Japanese people, as well as Filipino people cast to play a Malaysian person. And for some weird reason, it's just socially acceptable to bunch all Asian food into the Chinese food genre thanks to the big buffet boom. So for me, I have very little faith in America understanding that Chinese people and their culture is different than, say, me who's a Filipino person in my culture. Because, you know, all Asians look alike and we all like rice. Also, the bigger problem is you shouldn't be attacking someone during a pandemic and blaming them for this pandemic because of an Asian term, because viruses and pandemics don't happen because of ethnicity. My skin color and race is not a disease. It happens because, again, assholes don't take it very lightly and think of it as a hoax. And then we're stuck here. Almost a year later. Holy shit, it's almost been a year.
I know as a whole, hate crimes has risen against Asian Americans, especially against elderly Asian people, which has also just been a common thing that's happened. But it started to gain relevance when this 90-year-old Chinese man was attacked by some asshole who apparently assaulted a few other elderly people as well. And this sparked an Asian community to speak up, with people like Daniel Day Kim and Daniel Wu offering $25,000 to find this guy, as well as other Asian people speaking up about stopping the hate against Asian people and the assault of our elderly.
Well, throughout American history, there's been a steady undercurrent of Asian hate crimes throughout. But when there are events of xenophobic hysteria, then it swells up. And we are going through that right now.
Plenty of Asian Americans who feel very unsafe today, including my parents who live in California. And they've been in their homes for a year because of fear of getting COVID. And now there's hope for a vaccine, and they're afraid of going outside because of the huge number of attacks on Asian American and specifically the elderly.
Verbal and physical attacks against Asians is not a new thing. However, since COVID-19, we've all been aware of the drastic spike in hate crimes against Asians. And this has been something that's been breaking my heart.
Companies like Nike and HBO are speaking out as well. Obviously, take companies speaking out with a grain of salt, but they do help bring light to the conversation that has been common knowledge to the Asian community about the ongoing attacks against Asian people. I'm not pointing any fingers, but, you know.
By now you realize, I think that tackling these stereotypes, such as the model minority, stigma and the myth of it is very important, and we should be responsible for calling it out because it is dangerous. Look at what's happening now. So if I have a chance to be loud about it, I'm going to be. And I think I'm doing a pretty good job at it with this video. Hey guys, we got really deep today. So thanks for staying with me and watching. I wanted to just let you know that in the links down below, I have links to NextShark's Instagram. They're the ones who keep up with articles about different Asian things going on, such as like Asian hate crimes or like other kind of like racist shit happening towards Asian people. As well as I also have the website for the Stop the AAPIHATE. I have their website and as well as the donation website. Links are down below. So thank you for watching. And man, we're going through some weird shit right now and times have been weird, but just keep on keeping on, and whatever you're going through, you've got this, cowboy. Pew pew.